Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last online seminar of the training for international staff to support high-quality student mobility. I congratulate everyone for making it until now and for joining us. And I hope that we have met, if not all, at least most of your expectation of this training, because we really enjoyed preparing it for you and sharing all tools, tips, and knowledge of our speakers that participated in the whole training. Today it's even more special day because our seminar is part of the staff week of University of Marburg, and I'm sure that you know Christina Bolle and her colleagues Annie and Rebecca, who participate also in the preparation of this event. My name is Victoria, and I'm a project coordinator at the European University Foundation, and I'm also host of this training. But without further waiting, let's start. I will move to short practical information. So as you know, this seminar is recorded and the recordings will be uploaded on our FESC project website. And you also have a Q&A and chat box where you can leave your questions and comment with your colleagues and us as well. Today, we are closing the cycle of the training, which started with setting the scene and introducing a framework for Erasmus staff competencies. We also learn how to move from change to crisis management and how to cope with both. And we discussed how to communicate with different stakeholders and perform effectively at work. And today we focus on career development and development of some very important soft skills. So the agenda includes a session on stress management presented by Ekaterina Petranina from St. Petersburg State University. And then we will have a presentation on digital skills from Monika Platek from University of Warsaw. And finally, we will introduce another output of the FESC project by Klementina Kielak, who is the local project partner from University of Warsaw. And Christina and I will close this training and wish you all the best. And I think it's time to start, and I hand over to Christina to introduce the first speaker today.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and welcome from my side as well. I'm very glad that you have found the time to join us again in this fourth session of our FESC training, and welcome as well to our participants from the Marburg Staff Training Week. And we're happy to be able to combine the two groups who are working on similar topics in different training activities. Now we will start with the first presentation on stress management, and I welcome Ekaterina from the St. Petersburg State University, who is the vice deputy head of the International Academic Cooperation Department, and is almost for 10 years been active working in the field of international relations. So she's a very experienced colleague who can share her expertise and her knowledge with us. And we hope very much in the context of the current events and changes in Erasmus that your presentation, Ekaterina, can help us along on the way. And I hand over to you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. Special greetings to some people whom I know personally and who know me. I'm very happy to be here, and of course, we all wish that we were somewhere in the room, for example, in Marburg for the staff training week, and it would be so nice to see your faces, your reactions. But on the other hand, it's very great to see that there are so many of you, probably much more than we would be able to welcome at any staff week, in-person staff week. So there are always some advantages to virtual mobility, so to say. And before I start with the topic of stress management, which is of course pressing and especially pressing now in the times of the pandemic, I would like to ask you one question. I would like to know whether you consider yourself being under stress right now. And for that, you need to go to menti.com. And if you are participating in these webinars, you are already familiar with this. You go to menti.com and use the code. And I already see some answers appearing. While you're doing it, I can say that on the previous webinar that took place last Thursday, my colleague already asked the question whether participants considered that the pressure on international relation offices has grown in the last several years. And the participants, quite predictably for me, answered that it has grown substantially and have given some reasons for that. So if you're interested, you can check the previous webinar. And we see that quite many people feel quite stressed. It's very good that not many feel very stressed, but still the vast majority are experiencing at least some stress in their life. Yeah, and we will try to go in another direction and think about some things that are relaxing. So another question, like what helps you relax and cope with stress? It can be anything, like your happy place, some activity that you like to do, anything. I'm very interested in what you suggest. Walking, very interesting. We will talk about that a little bit later, about walking, sport, and family too. So the most popular words here on the word clouds will be the ones that I will mention too. Okay, let's go to some research then. Stress management is a huge topic that I can talk for hours about, but I don't have that much time, so I decided to introduce some main concepts and then give you resources where you can learn some more information about these topics. Our Menti results show that I don't need to explain why stress management is important. Stress badly affects your health, mental, and even physical abilities, productivity, relationships, even your IQ. The good thing here is that you don't have to sort out all your problems to reduce stress. You can do it by working on your attitude. Because it's not the events that give us stress, it's our view of events. Another important thing that I should mention here is that stress management is not about eliminating all stress, it is about coping with it, managing it. Because, and I will also mention it a little bit more later, that moderate amounts of stress can actually help you and motivate. Let's go to the next slide. Let's start with the techniques that help us fight immediate stress and immediate emotions. They look simple enough on the slide, but actually not so much when it comes to acting. Different people react to stress differently. Some feel the need to run and act as quick as possible. Some freeze. And what you actually need to do in this situation is to stop for a moment, try to distance yourself from the situation and think. first you need to examine your thoughts on the situation and try to be as objective as possible. Try to separate the facts from your beliefs and identify the real problem. Then you need to gather information on the problem. And again, try to be very objective. If you have the chance, you should always choose to talk to the person who causes stress or who can help you with the problem, instead of just sitting there and worrying. And in many cases, this is actually the stage where the problem goes away because you resolve your misunderstandings. If it's not the case, then you plan a resolution starting with very simple, achievable short-term goals. It is very important. And then you start acting on them, even if you still feel a little bit unsure. And you should remember that sometimes the best possible action is letting go. Next slide, please. There are some tactics that help you cope with your emotions. You can take a break or you can talk to someone. It is quite obvious. You can literally walk or run from stress. Walking was one of the most popular answers on Mentimeter. And quite many people find that they think better when they walk, and it is true. It is proven that physical activity, including walking and running especially, stimulate mental activity and helps to reduce stress, both in short-term and long-term perspective. You can try to work on your attitude, which is always not easy, but you can practice mind exercise, trying to find positive sides or ways to laugh at the situation. And after some attempts, when you're doing it regularly, it becomes easier and easier for you. But if it doesn't work, at least yet for you, you can also, so to say, fake it till you make it. Which means that by using proud poses, white poses, smiling and acting confident, you give information to your body how to feel, and your body adapts and sends in hormones to make you feel suitable to the pose or expression that you're using. You can try, and it actually works. For example, when you feel scared, but you keep smiling and standing tall, your body will get a signal that you're strong and assured, and actually make you feel so. And even though the fear can still be inside, you will be able at least to think and act soundly. Next one, please. Reducing stress in the long-term perspective is more difficult, and the key here is work-life balance, and that's about family, another one of most popular answers on the question that I asked. There is still a stereotype that in order to be productive, you need to work 24/7. But recent studies actually show that in order to be most productive, you need to be happy. Satisfied workers are proven to be more productive, more creative, initiative, more likely to stay at their workplace. They set higher goals, they make decisions more efficiently, and even their IQ rises. And even though it is completely possible to be happy just by doing your work, if you love it, if you're excited by it, most people are happiest and thus more productive when they balance their work and personal life. It means that if you are one of those people who feel guilty when you leave work on time or constantly feel the pressure of unfinished tasks, You need to remind yourself that you need time for yourself to relax, to unwind, and return to the tasks fresh and productive next morning. It is very important. Next one, please. If you have problems with setting time for your personal life, and I personally know some people who do that, it can help if you include your personal life into your schedule, similarly to the business tasks, and then follow the schedule. And there you need to treat meetings with friends or hobbies, dance classes, other activities that are important for you personally, that give you resources, with the same respect that you treat your work tasks. And when we're speaking about time spent at work, it's also within your power to make it happier and less stressful. And time management really helps here, because by organizing your time, you make your day more predictable, and you feel less distressed when you're swimming in familiar waters and when you know what to do. This on the slide, you see just a couple of ideas, like setting time slots for emails or other things that distract you, trying to monotask as much as possible, or doing some unpleasant task first thing in the morning to get it over with. And if you're interested in more time management ideas, you can also check the previous FESC webinar, where my colleague from Latvia talked about time management specifically. What I want to specially note here is the last point on the slide, setting aside time for big challenging goals. It may sound a little bit weird, because by setting challenging goals, by going out of our comfort zone, we are consciously putting ourselves under stress. But actually, it also adds up to a happier lifestyle and happier work life. What makes people happier at work is engagement, purpose, and balance between challenge and achievement. And that is why, if we want a happier work life, we need to regularly do things that are just a little bit more difficult than we're used to, just a little bit above our skill level. Because, like I said, limited small amounts of stress really motivate you and help you go further. And when you cope with this small amounts of stress, you become better and you feel happier. Next one, please. Like I said earlier, the purpose of stress management is not to get rid of all stress, but to manage it. And first of all, you need to care about not how much energy you spend, but about how much energy you regenerate, about the ways that you regenerate, and that you have suitable time to replenish your batteries. Because it is a little bit like batteries, with the main difference that if you challenge yourself and then recharge, if you go above your skill level and then have sufficient time to gather resources back, you can actually grow your energy limits. And it means that the more you do, the more energy you have. It's actually true. You just need to remember that you need to replenish your energy adequately. Next one, please. Energy has different levels, a bit like Maslow pyramid hierarchy of needs, if you're familiar with it. And like in this hierarchy, everything is based on physical energy, and without taking care of it, you can't sort out any other level well. Physical level includes health, nutrition, activity, and of course sleep. There are some people who believe that 1 hour less of sleep equals 1 hour more of productivity, and I used to believe it too, but it is completely wrong. For example, numerous studies said that students who get enough sleep before the exam show much better results than those who study all night, with all other conditions being equal. And so you need, it's quite obvious, but you need enough sleep to be productive and to be less stressed. The second level is emotional, which states that when you're happy and interested, you have much more energy than otherwise. Mental level speaks about our intellectual stimulation, or in other words, setting challenging goals and being concentrated and not being distracted a lot, and it gives us energy. And the highest level is our overall goal, our place in life. And it can be pretty powerful by itself, but most often can work only when all the other levels are already cared for. And this is the last slide on my presentation, and it sums up, no, sorry, can you go back a little bit? Yeah, it sums up, I think, the presentation perfectly, because it repeats all the points that I told you about the necessity of being happy, the necessity of challenging yourself from time to time, and by understanding yourself and understanding what you're doing. Yeah, and now we can go to the next slide, and it is another question, because before I say goodbye, I would love to ask what techniques for reducing stress you use. Which do you find the most helpful? You can write something that you heard in this presentation, or even better, you can write something else, something new. Yes, all these advice are really nice for making you happier and trying to relax. Again, sports, physical activities, humor, finding positive sides of the situation. Okay, I think you will have these answers, if I'm not mistaken, in the presentation when you receive it after, and I hope the results will be kept. So we can probably go to the last slides, which is some resources that you can use to learn more about what I was just talking about. And there you can find some MOOC courses or some books. And I think we have a couple of minutes to answer your questions. So I will check.
Ekaterina, there was one question concerning the Pomodoro tool that you mentioned in one of the slides. Maybe you could comment on this?
Yeah, of course, no problem. When you receive the presentation, you will also be able to click the link to know more about it. Pomodoro tool is when you set specific time slots. It's usually a very quite short time slot, 20 to 30 minutes, so about 25 minutes. You set the timer and you are working for all this time only on one specific problem without being distracted. It is even better if you switch on your phone for this time and try to eliminate all other distractions. And it really helps, it is said that it really helps to work on difficult tasks. For example, the ones where when you don't know how to start a big task, you can just set out time and start working on it. Or it can also help you manage your time, because if you set these time slots for different tasks, it really helps you organize yourself. And a lot of people say that yeah, I see that there is a colleague who sent a link for the Pomodoro tool. You can check the information there. A lot of people say that when they have limited time for the problem, they actually manage to do more than they would do otherwise, because for the same problem you can spend half an hour or an hour or the whole day, and it mostly depends on how you tackle the problem. Are there any other questions, Christina?
That was the one I noticed, and thank you for explaining it, because I think this really helps a lot. I mean, I'm one of the people, I love to do all the lists of tasks that are ahead of me for the day, and usually that puts even more stress on me, because you see all these issues that you have to tackle, and then you start working on different stuff at the same time, or try to do all at once, or you switch from one to the other and back again. And in the end, it's far less effective, of course, and far more stressful. So I think this could be a good approach to actually take a step back and get a proper structure. Because usually, I guess that's the experience that many colleagues have. At the end of the day, the list usually is rather longer than shorter, regardless of how much you actually achieve in doing. Thank you so much. I don't see any further questions at the moment.
Okay, then if anyone has any further question, you can just contact me. And I hope it helps. It was really nice to be here. Then I will say goodbye here, and I'm just on time.
Perfect. No, thank you very much, Ekaterina. And I think this topic really followed up on the issues we discussed in our last training session. As was mentioned before, we had the time management there. And of course, one of the focus topics of our sessions was this crisis and change management. And in this context, especially, I think this dealing with your personal position in the whole process and how you approach this whole change and crisis and stress is really essential. So thank you very much for your input. And indeed, all the results and the presentation will be available to all the participants afterwards. And then I would already switch to the next topic and the next speaker. We have a lot of program here today, as you mentioned, noticed in the beginning. And now I want to introduce Monika Platek from the University of Warsaw, who is working at the International Relations Office at the university for several years now. So she will tell us more about digital skills for staff, dealing with student mobility. And I welcome you, Monika, and would hand over to you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So hello, I'm Monika Platek. And today I would like to talk to you about digital skills. And I see that quite a lot of you use your digital skills to join us today, which I'm very happy. And the topic of digital skills is something that we had to get aware of a lot in the last 12 months. During the pandemic, so I think this is something that we already have some idea about. So moving on, we are going to first briefly discuss what are the digital skills, then the digital evolution in the new Erasmus Plus program. Later on, I would like to focus about the online communication, something that we have to do a lot right now. And at the end, I would like to talk to you about other digital solutions, such as social media or websites, something that probably is not that's important when we think about digital skills. That's not the first thing that comes to our mind. So let's start. Digital skills are the ability to use digital devices, communication applications, and networks to access and manage information. For me, it sounds like a very general description of my tasks, but where actually do we use those digital skills? So first of all, the Erasmus Plus program requires us to use a lot of IT tools. But thinking about the next Erasmus program, we will have to use other, even more, we'll be going even more digital, because the projects like Erasmus Without Paper or Online Learning Agreement will be introduced. The next thing is communication from a home office. You have to excuse me if I'm going to repeat word pandemic a lot, but this is actually something that made us very aware of digital skills, very aware of on what level we are. The next thing are the new channels of communication. We have to keep in mind that we are living in a digital era, and the communication that we use may be perceived a bit old school by our audience, by students, the young generation, who are keeping up to the trends, and new channels of communications appear, and they will keep appearing. So we have to be a bit open-minded about it. And the last thing why we are going to talk about the digital skills and why it is important is that it turned out that it is ranked very high as the competence of the staff, of the IRO staff. In FESC, we conducted a survey and a series of interviews, and we found out that both students and IRO staff think that this is very important. And what is worth mentioning is that the survey and the interviews were done before pandemics. So even in the, let's say, normal reality, a lot of people thought that this is something important. So we can move further. And now I would like to get your input to hear what percentage of your daily work is done using the IT tools. By IT tools, I mean your university system, the IT solutions that are required by the Erasmus Plus program. Okay, so we can see that most of our daily work is done using the IT solutions. Okay, and now the next question. How would you assess if you use the IT tools to the same extent that before pandemics? Okay. So it seems that there was a change. Okay, so that brings us to conclusion that probably a lot of us can relate, that the digital transformation in our company, in our institutions, in our universities was done mostly by COVID-19. So something positive out of 2020. Okay, so we can move to the new Erasmus Plus program, which in brief we can describe it that Erasmus goes digital, because we are going to focus even more on the digital solutions. So probably the names like Erasmus Without Paper, Online Learning Agreement, European Student Card, those are the names that you heard. Maybe some of you already saw the dashboard. Maybe your systems, university systems, are connected to EWP. This is all becoming visible in our work, because those solutions are planned to be implemented in the new project. And even more, many of them are going to be obligatory. And here I wouldn't like to tell you how all those solutions work. I would rather focus on the benefits that they are going to bring. So could you please go to the next slide? I would like to tell you why we should use them, why Erasmus should be more digitalized. So just a psychological fun fact, because I'm a psychologist, we are more prone to do things if we know the reason. The reason doesn't have to be very elaborate. It can be just simple just because. So here I would like to give you those becauses that we want to use the digital tools. So first of all, they will enable us to transfer data safely and fast. For those of you who are from European Union, probably you've been tired of hearing GDPR compliance. So we have to make sure that the amount of sensitive data that we transfer are safe. The next thing is that we will receive one common format for all the institution, which will make the data easier to read, easier to understand. The next thing, probably something that is very important for each one of us, it will reduce our workload. We won't have to send that many emails, which are time consuming. And last and not least, it will be a precise data exchange. So the data will reach exactly where it's supposed to reach. We will reduce the human mistake, because probably every one of us has the experience of not receiving a very important email simply because there was a typo in the email address, or simply because it reached someone else who didn't forward it to us. So these digital solutions will lower the risk of losing the data. So if we could move forward, now I would like you to think, what skills are needed? What do we need to have to be prepared for the new Erasmus Plus program? Okay, I hope that we don't need to get COVID to be more digitalized. Okay. Yes, flexibility training, definitely. Digital skills, patience, definitely we should have a patience. Support, yes, exactly. Okay, so I see that a lot of things that I'm going to talk about is showing up. Good Wi-Fi, definitely. Now, especially at the beginning of pandemic, I think the internet providers were a bit surprised with the amount of people that use internet in one block of flats, for example. Open mind, definitely. And here are the skills that we identified. So the first thing would be the ability to use appropriate digital tools. The second thing is the ability to demonstrate awareness of diversity in a digital environment, or simply speaking, just to understand that not everyone is on the same digital level as we are. Not every institution has the same access to digital tools, and not every person is that skilled in a digital environment. The next thing is the ability to organize and manage data. And last, the ability to assess relevance and credibility of digital data. So here also, to put it in a bit easier words, is just how to safely use those tools. Okay, so I think we can now close the topic of the new Erasmus Plus program and the digital solutions that are going to be implemented. And now I would like to move on to the communication, and to the communication which is done online. What we found out while working in FESC, it turned out that both students and IRO staff see that there is a room for improvement, not only in the communication between partners, but also in the communication within the institution. So what type of communication we have in our daily work? So first of all, will be the communication in our institution. I think it's safe to say that at least every one of us had this experience of turning their living room or their study room into their home office. And we don't share the same working space with our colleagues. We cannot have a small chit chat. We cannot have a brainstorm in the office. We have to do this this communication otherwise now. We had to somehow connect our home offices. The next thing is the communication with students. Thanks to the digital revolution that is happening right now, thanks to COVID-19, we have the same type of communication with students regardless of the place where they are. So usually I work with incoming students. So the most intensified contact that I have with students is when they are here in Warsaw. But now, as we had to limit the communication, we had to limit the face-to-face appointments, I see that we can have the same type of contact even when they are far away from me. And the last thing, which probably was not that modified by the outburst of coronavirus, is the communication with partner institutions, because we are very far from each other, and looking that here we have participants from different parts of the world, it is just simply impossible to meet, to come to the office, to have a meeting in person. So this is probably something that we more or less know how to deal with. We are more experienced. So going further, what tools can we use for online communication? I think now in 2021, each one of us heard, used, or seen the tools like MS Teams, Big Blue Button, Google Meets, Zoom, Skype. All of those tools enable us to communicate in different ways. We need to think what communication we need. If we need to just text, exchange short messages, so then we can use chat. If we need to call, if we need to see each other, so the video conference. In case we have a larger audience, we can organize webinars. So for example, like we do now, it probably will be very difficult to put all of 300 people in one room, and maybe even some of you wouldn't have a chance to participate in the seminars because of the distance, because of travel restrictions, because of lack of time. The next things are the virtual office hours, so something that I already told you, that we can have the personalized kind of face-to-face contact with students, even if they are abroad. And also the next thing is that the virtual office hours also might be valuable for students, for persons with disabilities, for whom going to the campus to see you at the office for 10-15 minutes, it's just too much trouble. And then it will be much easier for them to have a meeting, kind of personal, face-to-face, screen-to-screen meeting from their home. And last thing is that, well, thanks to the IT tools, we can use the files, we can work on the files together, thanks to the tools like SharePoint, Google Drive. Okay, next, please. But now there is the question, how should we choose a proper tool? Why we, when probably all of our institutions have the IT that should support us, that should give us clear answers? Well, I hope that I'm being pessimistic here, but just let me tell you my experience from 2020. So at the University of Warsaw, basically overnight, the authorities made a decision that we are switching to remote teaching. And as you can imagine, the university with over 40,000 students, moving everything online, all of the classes online, it was a big deal. Our IT staff was working day and night to make it happen. And it was the IRO and our needs, they were basically not their highest priority. So we had to find a solution ourselves. We had to find a proper tool ourselves. So how do you do that? First of all, you should define what type of communication you need. Like what we discussed earlier, if you need to just chat or if you want to see people, you should define what is your target group, what is the size. If you want to meet one by one or if you want to have a group meeting, what are the preferences of the group? Next thing are the technology constraints and the accessibility. So some of the tools, they have the limit of participants. So you have to assess how many people you want to join in a meeting or a webinar. If you want to record, you need to check if it is possible. If you want to share or present, also check if it's possible. Or if you want to add some notes while presenting, all of this has to be taken into consideration. And the last thing is are the regulations. So you have to check what your institution, what your university offers, what type of licenses do you have, and if the tool that you choose will be accessible by all of the participants. Also national regulations, just even here in FESC, when we also had to move a lot of our activities online. For example, this workshop was planned to be in person. And when we were trying to find a proper tool for all of us, it turned out that there were some small problems, and we are very few participants. That, for example, the one tool didn't open on someone's computer. Then one tool was completely out because of the national regulations in Germany. So those are the things that you all need to keep in mind while choosing a proper tool. Oh, so we can move further. And now I would like to switch to the non-traditional channels of communication. So again, I would like to know your input, if you use any of the non-traditional channels. Okay, so here I see that we have more answers, yes. Unfortunately, here at the University of Warsaw, we don't have a chance to use that much of those non-traditional communication channels, especially social media. So I will talk a bit more from the perspective of the university who would like to use it, but doesn't have that much chance. Maybe not the university, but us as IRO. There are some restrictions which unfortunately we cannot do that. Okay, so moving on to social media. So during our survey, we found out that students crave for personal, immediate, and clear communication given in a timely manner. This is something that can be catered for by using social media. And why is that? It is because social media is a completely different type of communication. It is made for fast communication. So maybe let's start from the beginning, from this personal contact. Even if you post something, then students have a chance to write a comment, and then you have a little chat in the comments. You can clarify the doubts fast. And again, fast, we go to the immediate contact, immediate communication. So first thing are the comments, and the second thing are chats. The students can chat you, and you can reply to them immediately. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it's also on Facebook that if you have a fan page, there's a small note that replies within, and no one wants to have their replies within 7 days. It doesn't look good because social media is for fast communication. So you need to give a fast answer to the chat message, and you need to give a short answer, because in chat the communication is slightly different. You don't go with all the dear kind regards. It's a short question, short answer, so it makes it also a clear communication. The student doesn't have to go through all the essay that you wrote. You just give the answer to what they were asking for. And another thing is the timely manner. It is definitely safe to say that checking our social media it became our daily routine. And when it comes to younger people, so mostly our students who are in their 20s, maybe they are still teenagers, it is their probably even hourly routine. So from my experience, my students usually miss the deadlines because either they didn't see the email because it got into their spam folder, or they provided me with an email address that they check once a week, so they just simply didn't see it. But if we communicate through social media, that is something that is more effective, because the student will check it, because this is just a part of their daily, of their hourly routine. And probably if you post something, it's 90% sure that they will find out about it, even the same day. So just, I'm not sure if you know all of the social media. I see that on the chat they're popping up some Facebook, some WhatsApp. So here I decided to put Facebook icon. Probably everyone knows Facebook, or at least saw it somewhere. The second logo is from WeChat. WeChat is used mostly in China, because in China there's no access to Facebook. And the last thing is, I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, especially for Katarina, it's Kontakte, which is used mostly in Eurasia, in Russia, Belarus. Okay, so we can move on. Leave the social media aside, and I would like to also talk about website. This is also a digital mean of communication with students that we may also use in a slightly different way. We also asked the students in the survey what makes a good website, and the answers were updated, easy to read, meaning clearly structured, understandable, and available in different languages. So as you can see, those answers are kind of responding to the needs that were listed in the previous slide. Again, this clear structure, the clear answer, this is something that students look for. And when we're preparing to update our website, to completely change its structure, we did a bit of research and the biggest universities and also other institutions that deal with student mobilities, to get some good practices, to get some inspiration. And what we found out is that a lot of those websites dedicated for students, they were taking student on a journey on the website. Let's say that a student had to choose, like, if you come here to search for A, B, or C, then they click on B. Then within the B, they also had some choices. Then they clicked again and again and again and again, and then at the end they were led to the answer to their question, and the answer was very short and very precise. So this way, this is the way that the young people, they need to get the information. They don't care about all the other things. They just want to get a precise answer to their question. And also the information has to be updated. And here I think that this updated we can take into both ways. Not only that the information is up to date, but also that the website, its layout, it is updated. The digital era is changing so much, and we have to keep that in mind, that the website that looks good for us may not look good for younger generations. And at the end of the day, the website is made for our target group, for our client, for the students, not for us. Okay, so I think we can go further to the next slide. And what do you think? What skills and attitudes are needed if we want to use the, social media, if we want to communicate using website? Definitely open-minded. Availability, yes, definitely the time management, yes. So well, what I said is that we need to reply fast. We need to, this type of communication is an immediate communication. Creativity, definitely. Availability. Quick thinking, yes. This was another thing that a student pointed out in our survey, was that they expect our reactions to be immediate, quick. Patience, definitely. Yes, those are very interesting answers. Work-life balance, definitely. Yes, because we still have to remember that we are using the social media as a part of our work. It shouldn't get into our private time, into our private life. Okay. Okay, so I think we can go to the next slide. And here are just some skills and attitudes that we identified. So communication skill and language skills, I think you covered that more in details. To give the clear message to the student, the one that they're craving for. The second thing is digital skills in general, to manage and update the website, knowledge about the program, to structure the information in this clear way. Open-mindedness, also something that you already mentioned, and also the ability to use the proper mode of communication depending on the target group. So here we can go back to the slide with those social media. So for example, if your target group is 60% Chinese, then probably there's no point of using Facebook, because you're going to cut out a huge part of your group. Okay, so I think we'll be finishing with that. At the end, I would like to leave you with some websites where you can find out more information about Erasmus Without Paper and Online Learning Agreement if you don't know that much about those projects yet. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica, for this insightful presentation. And as we have a look at the chat, which is very, very active and involved as well,
So
you can see that it is a topic that we are all dealing with. And I think especially the aspects you mentioned on adapting to the target group, but of course still ensuring that we can manage, ensuring that we ensure quality in the communication and the projects, and that we are allowed and able to use the tools and the tools and platforms that are on offer. It is very, very complex, and we noticed in the chat that there's so many different experiences in the situation at the institutions. What is allowed you're allowed to use, how it works, how can you really cater to all student groups or all target groups, and of course, how do you get the target group to actually read and listen? This is one aspect that was discussed in the end as well. We have to adapt a lot, but at the same time, we have to ensure that the quality standards are not reduced more and more. So thank you very much. I don't think there's any open questions really, but maybe while you skip through the chat, you noticed anything that is would still have to be answered?
Yes, I'm really sorry if I was stopping, but there were so many interesting things popping out and I was just stopping to read it. Yeah, and I think there is no open question. I see that there are some mentions here that the students don't read carefully, and I think that's why we should try to give the information in small pieces, because they don't like to read a long paragraph when you can get the same message in a couple of words. And I think that's why those new websites, they're taking you step by step, so that at the end you find just the piece of information that you're looking for.
Yeah, indeed. And at the same time to, for example, ensure that we really transfer the guidelines and regulations. I think because you mentioned the websites, and to keep the website up to date and targeted to students, for example, as well. And I think there's a lot you can do if you maybe differentiate a bit of what contents and in what way, at what phase in the program, the mobilities, for example, you use which tools. So that maybe you can develop a kind of strategy of how to approach your students. There is a question from the question and answer section. I would be interested to know how universities which use these channels decide which to use. They are not used by all students. Yeah, this complexity of course, maybe requirements or expectations from students as well. And I think there's a lot of change happening very quickly. Maybe, Monica, what is your experience with adapting to this ever-changing scenario?
I can tell you how it is managed at our university, because also there will be my personal opinion that I think the social media, they shouldn't substitute the traditional communication. So we should be still available by emails. We should still have website, because not everyone uses the social media. It is, after all, sharing a part of our private life with big corporations. So we cannot force anyone to use social media. So I don't think that we should do it, and that's actually what happens at the University of Warsaw. So even though there is a communication on Facebook, on Instagram, it is all it all refers to the our news that are posted on our website. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you will find, you cannot find on a website something that was posted on Facebook. Definitely it can be more personalized, what I said, like for example in comment section, students or workers, they keep asking questions and they get some personal answers which everyone can see, and whoever is also interested in the specific matter, they already can find the answer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, very good. And one aspect that was mentioned shortly in the chat as well, and I think this is something that we should keep in mind if we refer back, for example, to the topic of stress management and this personal space and work-life balance as well, is that my impression is that sometimes with social media, with using, for example, WhatsApp for communication and so on, it's very important, and you mentioned it as well, to really have this separation between your work life and your work communication and your private life. Because of course students might expect, once you start using these channels for communication, that you answer day and night 24/7, and that you are available and answer immediately. And I think it's a very different experience in communication, and if the students transfer this expectation, of course, to this work context, it might get more and more difficult to really separate yourself and your personal life. So I think this is just something we should keep in mind once starting to use these channels to address our students. And of course, just as a last remark, we do have the Erasmus Plus app now. So the idea in the Erasmus program is, of course, to use social media and to use an app as a flexible, student adapted way for communication and reaching out to students. This will change our communication of the program further, but still I think if we have the experience that we have already, it is important for us to prepare and consider how we want to implement it and how we want to deal with this new approach in student services. Just as a last remark, because social media, this Erasmus app, will be one essential part of administrating Erasmus in the future for us. And it is something we will have to deal with, not only in the context of GDPR compliance and implementing it into the structures, but in adapting our communication culture to this as well. So thank you again, Monica. It was really helpful. And
it was a really interesting conversation there in the chat. So also thank you all for participating.
Fantastic. And now we would switch to the last part of this session and of this training series. Now Klementina Kilak from the University of Warsaw will be introducing the FESC guidelines. She works at the International Relations Office as well, and she heads the incoming short-term students section. Very long description. And as well, for several years, she's been active in this office, in this area of internationalization. And as well, she worked with the FESC project for the whole time and has a very clear insight into all the procedures we had here. And just to refer you back, for those of you from the FESC training, in the first training session, you were introduced to our framework for Erasmus staff competences. Els van der Werf from the Netherlands had a presentation and explained the framework to you, the functions, the structure of the framework. For those from the staff training week, you had the presentation this week on Tuesday. So maybe it's a bit closer to your memory than for the other colleagues. And now Klementina will present the guidelines, which will give you some hands-on information on how to apply the framework to your everyday life. So I would ask you, Klementina, to take the floor, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, thank you very much. So you might think that this training is sort of the whole session, the whole sequence of trainings was developed by accident. The ideas just came to mind what topics should be addressed. Where that was not the case, the ideas for trainings, for stress management, digital skills, time management, they all came up from the FESC project for origins of the project. So we can, Victoria, could we have next? In order to have the guidelines on how to use the framework, on how to proceed, because the idea of the FESC project is to create the framework for Erasmus staff competences. And in order to do that, we started with questionnaires for staff and for students. And I think it's very important that students were taken into consideration, and actually they were the ones who provided us with a lot of feedback, both during questionnaires and study visits that we conducted at all the FESC partners. Students were telling us what are their expectations regarding the IRO, and IRO were telling us what are their expectations regarding their work and how their work is perceived. And based on all this information and previous experiences of our colleague Els from the Netherlands, who together with colleagues from Ghent created the framework, all that together brought us the framework, and now we would like to present guidelines how to use it and how to actually use all the knowledge we've gained from the FESC project. Okay. So the framework is available on our website. You can see it there, and you can filter it in different ways. The idea is that you can check different skills and competences, attitudes that you have, and you can do it in a variety of ways. So I really encourage you to go to the website and to kind of play around with the framework to see what is available there and how you can adapt what is there to your needs. Okay. And how did the guidelines come together? It's a kind of a work that we did within FESC, and how are the guidelines to be used. I would like to divide the guidelines on how to use the framework and the outcomes of the project into 3 sections, and to look at it from 3 different angles. The first is the International Relations Office. And what I think is really important about this framework, the guidelines, all the outputs of the project, that this is something done for the IRO, by the IRO. So this is something that we are creating for ourselves. And that was quite a big incentive in the project, because this is something we think we can try to use in order to improve the work life of ourselves and our colleagues in the international relations offices. The HR, human resources, which are the units at the university which are involved in both recruitment and in career planning, career development. And we would really like to target them. And the institution as such, the higher education institution as a whole, the management, the procedures within the university, the structure, and how this framework can be used in order to improve the situation within one higher education institution at a time. Okay. Our first aim as IRO staff ourselves was to use the framework for self-auditing. For us to know what are our strengths, so that we can check which competences, which skills do we already have. Some of us work in the international office for a few years. Some of us are working in international offices for decades now. And therefore, we are at different stages. We are at different positions, different levels. And it's really nice to see where we're at regarding the different skills and competences which are required to be a perfect IRO staff member. One thing is to see where we are, the status quo, and to see what we can, what we have to improve, where can we improve. And I think it's something very important in the framework of lifelong learning, which is promoted by Erasmus and all the other projects and national initiatives, that we are to develop our competences and to develop them further. And our job, I suppose you will agree with me that our job requires that. We have to adapt to the changing world and therefore gain new competences, new skills. We talked about digital skills. I suppose colleagues who started their work 20 years ago, they were not bombarded by so many different possibilities, and adapting to working in this real-time communication with students, with partners. So there are always things we have to improve. And I suppose my perception of working in international office is this is a very diverse environment where you perform different tasks. It's my personal opinion, but working in the international office, you do a lot of different tasks from different units of the university in one place. And also you have to have different competences which are not as obvious as one would think. So first you diagnose yourself regarding the skills competences, then you check which ones you have to develop further. You find ways to develop them on your own or with the help of the infrastructure of your university. And then you assess the progress you've made regarding this development. So this is what the self-auditing is devised for. And Victoria, if you could just show what the framework looks like for, you just have different skills, competences, which are divided into knowledge, skills, and attitude. And you see where you agree that your competences are at a certain level or you disagree. And this is something not to assess you, not to check, not a test for you to perform, but something for you to do for yourself, to know where you're at, to see what are the prototypical knowledge skills required at the position you're at. For example, there is one for student advisor, there is one for office manager. There can be different skills which are required, and you can see if you have them and if you have ambitions to advance further in your career within the international office, internationalization scheme of the university, then you can see what are the skills and competences required at higher levels in that field. So self-auditing is the first one, and now we can move to the next purpose, and that's for professional development. And I think this is something that we have to look at from two sides. One is ourselves, trying to develop ourselves throughout our life, never stop learning, and look for materials because the responsibility for professional development is on us, of course, on our institutions to a certain degree as well, on the HR, the management of the university, management of the international office. But I think a lot of responsibility lies also on us. So once we see where we are lacking, or it's not that we're lacking because we don't have something, we haven't done something, but maybe we have not had the experience yet, we haven't had a chance. So what we should do is we should look at our skills, competences, what we have, and where we can find materials. And it was already mentioned earlier today by my colleagues. Of course, the pandemic made our life much more difficult in many, many aspects. There's no doubt about it. But there are also some things that changed, like the digital revolution that was caused by the pandemic. And this is something that also made a lot of things move online. This training, as an example, it was devised to take place in Brussels or in Marburg in a small room, so we could have just dozens of people. Now we can have several hundred people. Same goes for, I had a chance to take part in a training organized by our national agency. And one of the conclusions of this training was that people want online trainings to continue. There was a training on managing virtual mobilities, and people from different locations in Poland, from cities that are, I don't know, 7 hours away from Warsaw, they say that for them to come to a training and come back, that's a lot of time, energy, and money wasted. Whereas some of the things, of course, we want to have interactions, we want to meet each other, but some of these trainings should remain online because they are much more accessible to a lot of people in the international office. Because before the pandemic, only a few of us could go. For example, there are 20 people in our office, and not all of them can take part in all the trainings because of time and money constraints. But if the training is online, more people can take part. A lot of organizations are offering trainings. I'm sure you're familiar with all those organizations like EIA, ACA, NAFSA, and all of them are offering things online right now. A lot of universities were not taking part in those trainings because they cost, the live trainings cost several €100 sometimes, and you have to travel, the plane, the hotel, all that stuff. Now they cost much less because they're online and you don't have to travel. So it's a great time if you manage to squeeze it into your schedule, but with the Pomodoro tool that Katerina mentioned, probably you can. You can manage your time and focus on different aspects of personal development as well. So it is a good opportunity to use the resources which are more available, and some of them are for free. A lot of universities are taking their third mission very seriously now, and they're offering free courses. So there are trainings which are for free, and they are organized by the best universities in the world. And some of you mentioned that, okay, sometimes it's difficult to find out how to approach different, like the generation Z, generation Y, using digital tools. How to approach individuals from different cultures. What Monica said, that in China is WeChat, in the Russian-speaking world, Kontakte, and how to analyze and how to use those tools. There are trainings on that. So sometimes for free, for a few hours, you can get the knowledge and information that you have available. Of course, I'm not saying that we should eliminate human interaction and networking. They're very important, and we should go back to that as soon as the pandemic allows. But we should also use the resources which are available now, and some of them should be available in the future as well. So it is also our responsibility to take our career path into our own hands and to try to look for solutions. If we can go further and explore. A question I have, and I think this is a question that we often ask ourselves, is the university management, the rector, the chancellor, whoever manages your university, or even the board, or even heads of other offices, are they well aware of what the International Relations Office does in terms of student mobility? Right now, I can see that the prevailing answer is no. And I would actually agree. I feel that our work is quite diverse, and listening to my colleagues describe their work life during the pandemic, it became even more diverse. So the role of the framework and our guidelines to the framework is also to make people outside the IRO aware of what the IRO really does. So when they see the skills and competences which are required for IRO staff, they can understand that we are not just sitting there emailing students, but that we have to deal with issues such as the website, how to do it, how to address it, crisis management. Students want problem solving, instant problem solving. In the surveys we saw, they want IRO staff to have the competences to be able to solve problems in a fast developing situations. And of course, during the pandemic, it's something we had to do, but to make everyone aware that this is our daily life, that we're always ready to do that. So as predicted, a vast majority of you agrees that the environment outside of the IRO is not very well aware of what we actually do. And the framework is also intended to change that, okay? Because the IRO is not an island within a university. We're surrounded by different entities. And one of those entities, which I think we would like the framework to be used by more and to be more aware of what we do, is the Human Resources Office, or whatever they're called, whatever the structure is within your university. And first thing is for professional development, to make them aware of our competences, and then in turn, them to make other people aware of what we actually do and what is needed in the IRO. And to make sure that we have availability of trainings. But what I would like to stress, and bolded the word, is relevant training. Because if you have 10 or more years of experience in international relations, a training on intercultural competences is probably not something that you need a lot of, because if you're doing your job well for so many years, you probably already have those competences. Maybe you need to develop them further, but this is not something that is the most important. But for example, digital skills, or what Ekaterina mentioned, and I think it's a problem for a lot of international relations office staff, especially now, which is the work-life balance. Because if we want to have happy IRO staff who will stay with us longer and be as efficient in their work as possible, we also have to help them have good work-life balance. Because from my personal observation during the pandemic, a lot of IRO staff were more involved than the 8 hours a day. They were caring more and stressed more. So this is also something that we need to develop. And we should ask the Human Resources Office, or whoever is, I'm sorry, I got a message that I'm talking too fast. I am trying to do it because we're out of time, but I'll slow down a little bit. So we want to have relevant trainings, training which is appropriate for international relations office staff. And this is the role of the human resources, so they can get information on that, and also to get feedback from the international office staff. So this is something that the framework can help with. And so the framework as such can help in the process of career planning, and also in evaluation of our staff members. For example, with us, the head of the office asks all the managers of sections once every 3 months who should get the bonus, the 3-month bonus, the quarterly bonus. And for that, I have to say who and why. And I think the why is very important, and the framework was very helpful, because I can see, for example, who develops some competences or skills, and who have progressed in something, who has some competences and skills already, and to praise them for that. For example, today, Monica, whose line manager I happen to be, made a great presentation, and I can add that in my review later on and say, with the presentation skills, which are quite important in some of the work and some of the positions in the IRO, I can tick yes, 5 out of 5, great presentation, and I can use concrete evidence of why I want her to get more of the bonus than she would otherwise. So the framework is also very helpful to me in order to use that and show concrete reasons why, a justification of why such things should be. Also, when someone wrote here that human resources just want to cut down the number of staff, the framework can be also important to show them how valuable the IRO staff are. Okay. There is also another role of certain offices at the university, and that's hiring people. When there is a vacancy in your IRO, who has a leading role in the recruitment process? I'm wondering whether it's IRO or whether it's the HR. Someone wrote we do, and we do, I suppose it's IRO. Okay, so far we have HR, IRO, but mostly IRO. So what this shows that IRO needs more information on how to devise the recruitment process. And here is another role. So it's mostly HR, IRO, sometimes rector, vice rector, but the prevailing answers are IRO and HR. Okay. IRO, HR. That's pretty much the same everywhere. So we can go forward. And the framework can help human resources and IRO when making a call for the specific position. You can include in the announcement what skills and what competences are. And this is something that we would like to encourage you to use the framework for, because they're quite easy to then phrase and translate it to your language or whatever language you're using to make an announcement. But this is something that the framework can also be useful for. And what I think is important is also that sometimes we have some maybe linguistics problem or communication problems. When we're talking to IT, sometimes we have communication problems. They talk a bit of a different language than us. The same thing with HR. Sometimes they're using their jargon, we're using ours. And the framework can sort of help us be on the same page in terms of communication. So this can help in making the recruitment process easier for the HR and easier for the IRO. And I think in most cases, IRO's burden is heavier. So it's also very useful to have tools which will help you lower the burden in the recruitment process. Okay. And we are finalizing the guidelines, and there's also some feedback we would like to have from you. I mean, we're gathering feedback all the time from these workshops, but specific feedback that we would like from you is, would it be something that would be useful to you to have a prototypical task described for a specific position, describing competences needed to work at that specific position. So for example, if you're recruiting a student advisor, to have a list of like prototypical tasks, and then you can just rearrange them and make them fit to your the needs of your institution. Okay, I see the prevailing answer is yes, so we have to add that into our guidelines. There was also one question before about the results of the survey. So the results of the survey and the study visits are available on the website, but the guidelines will also have a section which will kind of gather conclusions from all different sources to see what we came up with and how we see that this should be used by IRO, HR, the higher education institution as such. Okay, the prevailing answer is yes, so we will focus on that. And the last actor is the institution as such. We're all writing, adapting, changing the internationalization strategies and action plans that follow. So it's also useful to use the framework and also to to show the boards, the rectors, vice rectors, IRO management who are creating the strategies, to show and also make them aware of the skills and competences within the IRO, and also skills and competences that are used, that should be also seen as important all through the university. So this is one of our clients that we want to provide guidelines to regarding how to use the framework and all the other information gathered in the project in order to adapt and then assess the internationalization strategy, because I don't think we can talk of an internationalization strategy as a one-time kind of an effort that you write it, you put it on the website and have it there for 10 years, because things change, the world changes, the programs change, Erasmus is changing, the pandemic changed a lot of our daily life. And therefore, all those little things affect the strategy of our university and the action plan that follows. So it is important to always keep assessing it and updating whatever needs to be updated. So that's our third and final big client for the guidelines. We are working on them, and as soon as they're finished, they will be available on the FESC website. And I think this would be a sort of the whole update regarding the guidelines. And this was the last presentation because it sort of draws from all the previous ones, and it's supposed to move forward using the knowledge we gained all through the project and this workshop included.
Thank you very much, Clementina.
I'm very sorry for speaking so fast, but I saw the clock ticking, and I was trying to get as much information as possible. in the time. So I'm sorry if it was too fast for anyone. The presentation is available, so it will be on the website. And I am working on trying to speak slower, but sometimes that's difficult.
No, but as one colleague in the chat mentioned, you speak passionately, and I think this is really how it got across. And I'm really thankful for you to presenting it the way you did, because I think it speaks a bit about what we've been doing in the project and why we did it. And all of you from both groups who've learned now about the framework and now had the chance to listen to Clementina's summary presentation of the guidelines, I think you understand why we think it is a really relevant tool for all of us, and especially setting it on these different levels of how to use it and how we can actually apply it, not only to improve our everyday work context, but maybe even to change something within the institution, to change something as concerns the status of our work and how we can develop our work and our position to maybe increase job satisfaction, to increase effectivity in our work. So I think there's a lot that you can take out of this framework, and we timed the training so that there will be the chance for Clementina and the team to include your feedback and the experience from the training in the drafting of the guidelines. And this was really thought so that we can actually understand your needs and your position and use it so that the end product will be something that you can really work with and that is useful for you. So we would look forward to more feedback from you, and as Clementina said as well, everything that is already available is on the website, on the FESC website. And I think that following this training series, this is your opportunity to have a look and give us some feedback. Of course, you have the evaluation forms for this training itself, but maybe even to get back to us with more comments, more information that we can use to improve the guidelines, so it's more helpful for you in the end. And I think, I know we are already at the end of the session, but we would at least give a short comment in the end. And we have one or two comments getting back to the start of this training series, and just to give a quick overview, just so you understand a bit, you as the audience, and for us it was important to see who's participating in this training and whom we are addressing. And as you can see, most of you are from the international relations offices, and those are the colleagues that were mostly addressed in the examples and in the presentations. But we do have a number of colleagues from the department, from faculties, which is very helpful for us. And I think it became apparent that the topics that we are addressing here, and the same goes for the other groups, that they are relevant not only for the international office, but for everyone who's dealing with this context of internationalization, supporting and advising students, and dealing with all the changes and the requirements that you face in your daily work. And this not only relates to Erasmus, of course. And next slide, please. And we asked you, those from the FESC training group, we asked you in the first session what your expectations for this training would be. And as you can see, the majority chose communication skills to reach the target groups. And I think this is something that, for example, in the presentations today, the digital skills, and in the sessions on crisis and change management, we discussed this a lot, and we focused a lot on this topic of communication, adapting to changing work requirements. This is definitely, and the next as well, stress and crisis situations. This is something that were core topics we worked on, and we hope very much that you learned a lot and can take a lot from this training, and from maybe revisiting the information that we presented to you, and as well this self-assessment. And this is of course where, and the career opportunities, where we get back to the framework, where you can actually very specifically apply the tools we developed to your demands. And I think we have, yes, the outcomes from the training. Looking at the time, I won't go into detail, but here you see a bit of a summary of what topics we have dealt with in the training and what the outcomes, the takeaway for you should be from the different sessions and presentations. And so like these, we had in the beginning, and for the staff training week, you will have this tomorrow, actually. For example, this short presentation on the Erasmus language. I think this was one example where you can see what specialized knowledge and competences are relevant in Erasmus and how complex it is. And for outsiders, we had some colleagues here in the chat who said they were new to the Erasmus program, to their job, how complex it might be and challenging for newcomers to understand this whole cosmos of Erasmus, for example. We have learned about some of the tools that you can use to improve your work, like the SMART model, the PESTEL analysis, the impact tool, the NAFIC impact tool that was presented by the colleague from Ghent University. So just have a look afterwards at the list and remember what you learned and how much information you had the opportunity to gather during the 4 sessions. And I think now we would come to just quick questions, just 2, and if you take the time, did the training, oh, that's nice to see that at least the first colleagues who feedback, give a positive feedback, and we would be happy, and if there's some colleagues who think we did not meet your expectations and you would have expected something differently or more, other topics, other methodology or something, we are open to your feedback as well. So you can contact us afterwards and maybe, and in the evaluation form as well, of course, to give us some information on what you would have liked maybe differently. And of course, we are happy as well for the colleagues who vote yes now to get more information on, yeah, some positive ideas of what we could include, what we could change as well, of course. I think there's a lot. This was only a very limited approach, obviously, because we had to depend on online format. We had to reduce it to a very limited number of sessions. Thank you for the feedback. We would switch, I think, to the next question. Now it's an open question again for you to just give us some feedback on what the most important outcomes for you were. Because we had to select topics that we would discuss in more detail. We had to focus on some selected tools that you can use. So what was the most important outcomes for you? Yes, and indeed time management, the first one that's popping up here, is something we will get back to again and again in our work. Learn new methods and tools, managing crisis, and the IT tools, the complexity. I think one thing that is relevant for us and that we had the chance to learn during these sessions is to this taking the step back from your course, from your everyday routines, and reflect on what you are doing and what you are required to do. And usually we don't take the time to do this because we have so much to do and there's so much pressure and stress. And now we have learned that it is not only possible but necessary to do this and to allow yourself this. Yes, and recognition of the many skills, management, meeting interesting people. I'm glad to read this as well because we had to adapt a lot, and of course we hoped to have a group together, maybe in a room, and to have coffee breaks together, but at least there was some networking as well. Thank you for the many replies. As I'm already over time, I would stop here and not read out any more comments from you, but thank you so much for your feedback. And yes, thank you, Victoria, for rejoining me as well. I think we all from the FESC team want to thank you for joining this training and taking the time to attend the sessions. and we enjoyed it very much. I think it was a very active group. You were very reliable, and it was interesting, and it was fun for us to prepare the sessions and to focus on the different topics, connect with the colleagues. So thank you for attending. I would hand over to Victoria for a few last words maybe as well. But first, let me thank the colleagues who were the speakers today as well, Clementina, Monica, and Ekaterina, for not only taking part, but for giving such relevant input in this last session. And Victoria, thank you for organizing everything and doing all the work like behind the scenes as well, because we all know how much that is usually. So thank you especially.
Really pleasant to collaborate with all of you, all the speakers as usual. And I just want to say, as I said at the beginning, that I'm delighted how many participants joined this training and how active they were throughout all the sessions. And these would be my final words. You will have a certificate. We will send you all the follow-up materials as you have them already on the website. So for those that participated in 3 or 4 sessions, they will receive a certificate of participation. And again, it was really nice experience for me and for all, I believe. I'm looking forward to meet you, maybe in physical this time as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the colleagues from the staff week, of course, we meet this afternoon. For all the others, enjoy the rest of the day and soon enjoy the weekend. Take your own time on the weekend as well. And remember work-life balance.
Yes.
And thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.